I didn't invite my cousin to my wedding because she always makes scenes at family gatherings. I, 22F, am getting married this fall to my fiance, 29M, who I've been with for almost 6 years. He's the love of my life, the most patient and steady person I've ever met, and honestly, part of why I've survived all the chaotic family stuff I'm about to get into. Our wedding is something I've dreamed about for years. Not in a bridezilla way, but just, you know how some people picture the day when everyone they love comes together and it's joyful and peaceful and full of love? That's what I want. Except there's one major problem. And that problem is my cousin. Let's call her S. She's 30 female, only a few years older than me, and has been a constant source of drama for as long as I can remember. Now, before I go off on her, I want to give context. I grew up in a really tight-knit extended family. I mean, my grandparents had 6 kids, so there are tons of cousins, and we were raised to treat cousins almost like siblings. Sunday dinners, holidays, birthdays, barbecues. Everything was a big group event. There's this unspoken rule that family comes first, and skipping out on gatherings was pretty much considered a betrayal. And S is always, always there, always at the center of things, but not in a good way. She has this talent for turning any gathering into her stage. Sometimes it's small stuff like monopolizing conversations or needing constant attention. But other times it's explosive. I'll get into specific stories later, but just know, whenever I hear she's coming to something, I brace myself. The thing is, my parents and aunts and uncles just sort of roll with it. They say things like, that's just S being S, or she's been through a lot, give her a break. And sure, she has had some rough patches, messy breakups, job drama, etc. But the way she handles it is so destructive. It's like she doesn't know how to exist without pulling other people into her storm. So when my fiancé proposed, I was over the moon. We announced it at a family dinner. And of course, everyone cheered, hugged us, took photos. Even S hugged me and said she was happy for me, which shocked me because she usually makes everything about herself. But even in that moment, I had this sinking pit in my stomach, like, oh God, what if she ruins my wedding? That's a horrible thought to have, right? Like, I felt guilty even thinking it. Weddings are supposed to be inclusive, family-orientated events, and here I was already imagining scenarios where my own cousin might throw a tantrum or get drunk and scream at someone or even upstage me in some weird way. So that's basically where the dilemma began, because in my head, I started forming this idea, what if I just didn't invite her? It sounded crazy at first. In my family, everyone is invited, even distant cousins, even people who don't come around much. Not inviting someone is basically sending a declaration of war. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt like maybe this was the only way to protect my peace. I mean, this is supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. Do I really want to risk it being remembered as the day S had one of her meltdowns? I haven't told you yet what S has actually done because that deserves its own section, but trust me, it's enough to make me genuinely scared of her presence at such a huge milestone in my life. So yeah, that's the background. Me, the bride-to-be, just wanting a happy, drama-free wedding. My fiancé, who supports whatever decision I make, but also doesn't fully understand the depth of S's history because he hasn't been around for all of it. My cousin S, who has always been, well, the problem child. And my extended family, who treat excluding someone like the ultimate betrayal. And now I'm stuck in the middle of this impossible situation. Okay, so let me try to explain why S has such a reputation for chaos. Because I know when you hear, I didn't invite my cousin to my wedding, it probably sounds harsh. Like maybe she's just annoying, or maybe we don't get along. But it's deeper than that. She has this pattern, a full history of turning what should be happy family gatherings into disasters. Let me go back a few years. One of the first times I realized just how disruptive she could be was at my brother's graduation party. I was maybe 18 at the time, and S was in her early 20s. Everything was going great, music, food, relatives everywhere. Then halfway through the party, S got into a screaming match with her then boyfriend on the front lawn. Like full on, shouting, name-calling, throwing her drink on him. Everyone could hear. My grandma had to go inside because she was crying from embarrassment. My brother, the actual graduate, the person the whole party was about, ended up consoling my aunt instead of celebrating his own milestone. That was the first time I thought, wow, she really has no sense of boundaries. And that wasn't an isolated event. At Thanksgiving 2 years later, she got drunk and announced in front of everyone that another cousin, let's call her L, was, quote unquote, a cheating whore. Except L wasn't cheating. She had just heard rumors. It turned into this massive shouting match at the dinner table with people taking sides, and eventually my uncle drove her home because she was too drunk to function. Thanksgiving literally ended early because everyone was so upset. Another time, at my aunt's 50th birthday, S made a toast that turned into a 20-minute monologue about how hard her own life was and how no one supported her dreams. She cried into the microphone. My poor aunt just sat there trying to smile like it was okay, but the vibe was completely ruined. And personally, I've been on the receiving end too. On my 21st birthday, I threw a little party. Nothing huge, just some family and friends at a local bar. S showed up late, already tipsy, and started telling people I thought I was better than everyone else because I was in college. I overheard her saying it to one of my friends. I confronted her, and she flipped it on me, accusing me of being ungrateful that she even showed up. I ended up crying in the bathroom on my own birthday. So yeah, there's a lot of history. And the worst part? Every single time the family brushes it off. That's just how S is. She's going through stuff. She didn't mean it like that. There's always an excuse. She's never really held accountable. And I think that's why she keeps doing it, because there are no consequences. I'll admit, there's a part of me that feels bad for her. She's had a rough go in some ways. She dropped out of college, she's been in a string of toxic relationships, she's constantly between jobs. I think she feels insecure, like she doesn't measure up to the rest of us. And maybe that's why she lashes out, to pull attention back to herself. But still, just because you're struggling doesn't give you the right to ruin other people's special days. And that's really the heart of why I started thinking about not inviting her to my wedding. It's not just one bad night. It's years and years of her proving that she can't handle being at events without making it about her. And unlike Thanksgiving or a random birthday, I can't just shrug off the idea of my wedding being ruined. To be clear, I don't hate her. I don't wish her ill. I honestly wish she could get therapy or support or something. But at the same time, when I picture her at my wedding, I don't see her smiling and clapping politely during the speeches. I see her standing up and interrupting. I see her crying because no one ever threw her a wedding. I see her fighting with her boyfriend in the parking lot while I'm supposed to be dancing my first dance. And that thought terrifies me. So that's the track record. That's why when people in my family say, "Oh, come on, it's not a big deal," I feel like screaming, because it is a big deal. It's been a big deal for years. I've just never had the courage to stand up to the family about it before. So fast forward to last year when my fiance and I actually started planning the wedding. I knew wedding planning was supposed to be stressful, but oh my God, I was not prepared for the avalanche of opinions, decisions, money talk, and family politics. It felt like every single detail turned into a mini crisis. The guest list, the venue, the food, the music. The guest lists in particular nearly broke me. We both have big families, and my fiancé is super close to his extended relatives. He wanted them all there. Meanwhile, my family basically operates under the assumption that every cousin, their kids, and probably their dogs will be invited. I remember sitting at our dining table one night with this massive spreadsheet of names, and I just felt overwhelmed. And that's when the idea of S popped into my head again. I stared at her name on the list and literally felt my stomach twist, like this visceral, oh no reaction. I couldn't stop imagining scenarios of her making a scene, standing up during the ceremony, slurring her words during the reception, or picking a fight with my mom, which she's done before. The thought of all that happening on my wedding day, it made me feel sick. I brought it up to my fiancé. At first, he thought I was exaggerating. He's seen some of her antics, but never the full chaos. I started telling him stories, some of the ones I wrote above, and his face slowly shifted from amused to horrified. He asked me point blank, "Do you really think she'd ruin the wedding?" And without hesitation, I said yes. That's when he said something that stuck with me. If you already know it'll stress you out, why invite her? And that was the first time I gave myself permission to even consider not inviting her. It was like this little light bulb went off, like, wait, so do I really have to? Because up until then, the idea of excluding family felt unthinkable. But he made me realize it's our wedding. We're paying for it, we're hosting it, and it's supposed to be a reflection of us. Why should I invite someone who will almost certainly bring negativity? But of course, it wasn't that simple. The guilt hit me immediately. I could practically hear my mom's voice saying, "She's family. You can't just cut her out." And honestly, there's a part of me that feels like a hypocrite because I've sat through other people's ruined events, quietly resentful, but still staying. Would excluding her make me just as dramatic? Still, as the weeks went by and the planning got more stressful, I kept circling back to that thought. I don't have to invite her. I'd go back and forth with myself. One day I'd think, no, it's too cruel. She'll never forgive me. The next day I'd be like, why am I sacrificing my peace for someone who's never once respected mine? And I talked to a few close friends about it, and their reactions were mixed. One said, "Girl, do not invite her. Protect your day." Another said, "But won't your family explode if she's left out?" My best friend told me, "Either way, you're going to feel guilty. Guilty if you invite her and she ruins it. Guilty if you don't and the family freaks out. So pick the guilt you can live with." And honestly, that advice was the most grounding thing anyone told me during this whole process. So finally, after weeks of debating, I made the decision. I took her name off the list. I remember sitting there staring at the empty spot in the spreadsheet and feeling this weird mix of relief and dread. Relief because it was like a weight had lifted, like I could finally breathe knowing she wouldn't be there to overshadow everything. Dread because I knew there would be fallout. I told my fiancé first. He just nodded and said, "Good, you'll sleep better." And for a little while, I actually did. It felt like choosing myself for once, choosing peace. But deep down, I knew this wouldn't stay quiet. So remember how I said I felt relief after taking S's name off the guest list? Yeah, that lasted about 2 weeks because, of course, nothing in my family stays secret for long. It started small. My mom was helping me address envelopes, and she noticed the list looked short. She asked if I had double-checked all the cousins, and I froze. I tried to play it cool, but she caught on and pressed me. Finally, I just blurted out, "I didn't invite us." Her face, I'll never forget it. She looked like I had told her I was disowning the family. She didn't yell, but her tone was sharp. "You can't do that. She's family." And I snapped back, probably harsher than I should have. You've been saying she's family my whole life while she ruins every single event. Why should my wedding be her next stage? That conversation ended with her saying she was disappointed in me and me crying in the bathroom for an hour. Of course, she told my aunt, S's mom, and then my aunt called me. That phone call was brutal. She accused me of targeting her daughter, of humiliating her, of making the family choose sides. I tried to explain, I really did, but she wouldn't hear it. At one point, she literally said, "So what if she drinks too much or gets emotional? That's just her personality. You can't erase her from the family." And then, like clockwork, S herself found out. I wish I could say she handled it gracefully, but you already know she didn't. She called me sobbing, alternating between saying I was cruel and jealous of her. She posted a vague rant on Facebook about fake family who think they're better than everyone, which of course set off a whole round of comments and speculation. My cousin Elle even texted me privately like, "Wow, so I guess I'm not the only one she's burned." But honestly, the worst part wasn't even S. It was the ripple effect. Suddenly, every conversation with relatives became a debate. Some of my cousins said they understood. A few even admitted they secretly dreaded events because of her, too. But the older generation, my mom, my aunts, my uncles, they were furious. One uncle said, "If you invite 30 cousins but not one, that's an insult to the entire family." Another aunt told me, "You'll regret this for the rest of your life. Weddings are about family, not grudges." I felt so trapped. Like, no matter what I chose, I'd be painted as the villain. I started second-guessing myself constantly. Was I making too big of a deal out of her past behavior? Was I being selfish? Would I look back one day and think, why did I let one person ruin my relationship with my whole family? At the same time, every time I pictured her at the wedding, I felt dread, like this dark cloud over the whole day. I couldn't shake the image of her standing up during the vows or crying into the mic during the speeches. And then came the family dinner. This was maybe a month ago. We were all at my grandparents' house, and the topic of the wedding came up. One of my uncles casually said, "Oh, I assume S is coming, right?" And I swear, the air got sucked out of the room. My mom shot me this look like, "Tell them." So I did. I said, "No, she's not invited." And then it was like the room exploded. People talking over each other, my aunt yelling, my grandma crying quietly in the corner. S wasn't there, but her mom stormed out saying she wouldn't come either. My dad tried to calm everyone down, but it was chaos. And I just sat there, shaking, thinking, this is exactly why I didn't want her there. She causes drama even when she's not in the room. I went home that night and had a full-blown breakdown. I told my fiancé maybe we should just elope, skip the big wedding entirely. He held me and said, "This is exactly why you made that decision. Don't back down now." But part of me still feels crushed, like I fractured something in the family that can't be repaired. And the wedding hasn't even happened yet. So, after the dinner disaster, I honestly thought maybe things would just simmer down. Like, people would be mad, but eventually they'd accept my decision and move on. Nope. If anything, it escalated. About 2 weeks ago, we had another family gathering, this time for my grandma's birthday. I debated not going, but I knew skipping it would only make me look worse, like I was hiding from everyone. Plus, I love my grandma, and I didn't want to miss celebrating her. So I went. Big mistake. S was there, and the tension was immediate. She didn't even look at me when I walked in. She gave this big, dramatic hug to my fiancé, which was weirdly performative, like she was trying to prove something, and then loudly said to him, "I can't wait for the wedding." Everyone froze because they knew. She knew, and she wanted to make me squirm. I tried to play it cool and just smiled politely, but my hands were literally shaking. Later during dinner, She started making these little digs. Like when my aunt asked about the seating chart, S piped up, "Oh, I probably wouldn't know since apparently I'm not good enough to be there." Everyone pretended not to hear, but the awkwardness was unbearable. And then it happened. The explosion. Toward the end of the night, we were all in the living room singing happy birthday to my grandma. Afterwards, people were taking turns giving little speeches about how much they loved her. It was sweet and wholesome. Then S stood up. My stomach dropped. She started with something normal, like, "Grandma, you've always been there for me." But within 30 seconds, it veered into a full-blown rant about how the family abandons her, how no one ever sticks up for her, and how she's constantly punished for being emotional. And then, I swear to God, she looked right at me and said, "Some people would rather erase me from their lives than admit they're jealous of me." I was stunned, like literally speechless. My grandma looked confused, my mom looked horrified, and my fiancé squeezed my hand so tight I thought he might break it. Everyone was dead silent, and I just snapped. I stood up and said, "This isn't about you, S. It's Grandma's birthday, not your therapy session, and no one's jealous of you. I just don't want you ruining my wedding the way you ruin everything else." Yeah, I actually said that out loud in front of everyone. The room went nuclear. My aunt, S's mom, immediately started yelling at me, "How dare you talk to her like that? You're cruel. You're selfish." S started sobbing dramatically, saying I was bullying her. My grandma started crying too, begging us to stop fighting. It was a complete circus. My fiancé tried to pull me out of the room, but I was shaking with adrenaline and couldn't stop. I told S, "This is exactly why you're not invited. You can't go one night without making everything about you."
Finally, my dad physically stepped between us and told everyone to shut up. He basically forced me and my fiancé to leave before it escalated further. I went home in tears, feeling like I'd just set fire to the entire family tree. Since then, the fallout has been nonstop. S has been posting passive-aggressive memes on Facebook about toxic relatives. My aunt has stopped speaking to me entirely. My mom keeps calling, telling me to apologize just to keep the peace. And honestly, I don't even know what peace looks like anymore. Because here's the thing. Yes, I lost my temper. Yes, I said something harsh in front of everyone. But wasn't I just saying out loud what everyone else has been whispering for years? S ruins things. She can't handle being at events without causing a scene. And yet, somehow, I'm the villain for finally drawing a line. Now I'm stuck. The wedding is only a couple months away. Half my family is furious with me. My cousin is painting herself as the victim, and I keep replaying that night in my head, wondering if I made everything worse by exploding instead of staying calm. Part of me feels justified. Another part of me feels sick. Like maybe I should have just kept my mouth shut. Maybe I should have invited her and prayed for the best. Maybe then I wouldn't be dealing with this. So now here I am, 2 months out from my wedding, and instead of being excited, I feel like I'm carrying a boulder on my chest every single day. I wake up thinking about it, I go to bed thinking about it. Half the time, I'm trying on dresses or finalizing the cake flavors, and in the back of my head, I'm like, what if my family doesn't even show up because they're siding with S? It's eating me alive. And here's the part that's making me question everything. I don't know if I'm protecting myself or just being selfish. When I look at the facts, years of ruined parties, arguments, fights, tears, it feels so obvious that I made the right call. Why on earth would I willingly invite that chaos into one of the most important days of my life? Isn't a wedding supposed to be about love, joy, and starting a new chapter? If I know someone will bring negativity, isn't it fair to keep them out? But then the guilt kicks in. The little voice in my head that sounds suspiciously like my mom's, she's family. You can't erase family. One day, you'll regret this. I picture myself 10, 20 years from now looking back and thinking, wow, I fractured the whole family over one person not getting an invitation. And honestly, the confrontation at my grandma's birthday haunts me. I know I was telling the truth, but I can't stop replaying the look on my grandma's face or the way everyone went silent before the shouting started. Was that really necessary? Did I need to say it that harshly in front of everyone? Couldn't I have just stayed quiet, taken the high road, and let people think whatever they wanted? The worst part is S is now spinning this narrative that she's the victim on social media, to relatives, probably even to her friends. And because she cries and plays the misunderstood card so well, people believe her. Meanwhile, I look like the cold, heartless cousin who exiled her from the family. And maybe they're right. Maybe I am cold. Maybe I am heartless. Because at the end of the day, I could have just sucked it up and invited her. She might have caused a scene, but at least I wouldn't have created this huge divide before the wedding even happened. But then I swing back the other way. I think about how she ruined my brother's graduation, or Thanksgiving, or my own 21st birthday. I think about how many times I've cried in the bathroom because of her. How many times she's stolen the spotlight. How many times everyone excused her behavior while the rest of us suffered. And I think, why should I sacrifice my peace just to keep her comfortable? It feels like no matter what I do, I lose. Invite her and risk chaos. Don't invite her and deal with the fallout. Either way, someone gets hurt, someone gets mad, someone calls me the bad guy. And now I'm turning to strangers on the internet because I don't know what else to do. I feel torn in half. Part of me is proud I finally stood up for myself. The other part of me feels like I detonated a bomb in the middle of my family. So, am I the asshole for not inviting my cousin to my wedding because she always causes drama? Or am I just protecting my peace?